Hey everyone, Travis here with Monroe Film and Photo, and today I'm excited to start our new series on how to edit a wedding video. So with this series of videos, we're going to dive in and show you exactly how we put together a wedding from start to finish. And the first thing we're going to be covering is the basics of getting started and making sure that you have everything you need to be successful in your edit. One of the most important things when editing video in general, whether it is for weddings, corporate work, or anything like that, is that you need to have your files backed up. Multiple backups, storage. I know it's the fun stuff that no one likes to talk about, but it's actually one of the most important things you need to do. So what we're going to talk about first is storage and how that looks for our weddings at Monroe Film and Photo. The first thing that we do when we get back from a wedding day is we make sure that we get all of our footage backed up. Now, most of our footage is shot on SD cards similar to this. These are great, but they also can fail quite a bit. So that's why it's super important that you go ahead and back up immediately, just in case anything happens within this card before you get to your edit. You can tackle it. If you happen to have something that you think you got deleted, or you had a scenario where something happened with the camera and it didn't quite close out the file that it needed to, things like that. This is your first line of defense to make sure that it's working okay, is that you have this card, because some of those issues you can fix once you get back. Other issues, you can send these cards out and then have a company take care of it for you. But it's super important that you get these cards right away and you start getting that footage backed up. The easiest solution is to just simply put all the cards on your computer, right? Well, that's true, but you're probably going to be limited on how much space you actually have. For us here at Monroe Film and Photo, we are Mac-based, and on our computers, we only have typically about a terabyte of space to work with when it comes to editing. So being able to put weddings on our computers is not necessarily something that we want to do, nor do we have the room for it, because a typical wedding day is about 300 gigabytes. So if you do the math, you're only going to be able to put about 2 weddings onto your computer. What we do at Monroe Film and Photo is we actually have 2 different backup solutions that we work with. Redundancy is super, super important, and it's something that it will bite you at some point in time. If you've been lucky and you've always just stored things in one spot and it has worked out for you, that is awesome, but there's eventually going to be a time. Files get lost, a drive gets dropped, something like that happens where it becomes damaged and you lose your files. So you definitely want to have redundancy. What we do is we go ahead and we put all the raw footage from the camera onto an external hard drive, like this one right here. You can get a variety of sizes. What we tend to do is we stick to about 20 terabytes on these. And so that allows us to put in about like 15, 20, maybe 30 weddings. So we're able to put a lot of footage on here, but at the same time, this is not enough. So after we put everything on our external hard drive, then we go ahead and we back all that up to our NAS, which is right over my shoulder. It's a Synology NAS that we have, and we have about 100 terabytes of space. It's set up as a RAID 5, so therefore if one of those hard drives fails, out of the 8 that it's working off of, we can go ahead, pull that drive out, put a new one in, and we won't lose any footage. So right there, we have 2 redundancies in place. We have our external drive that we put all the raw footage on, and then we put that raw footage onto our NAS, which is set up so that if one drive fails, we can still get our backup. However, then we also have a third redundancy in that chain, which is our NAS is also connected to our Google Drive system. So those files get on the NAS, then the NAS sends those to Google Drive, and then we have everything backed up and we have it based off of cloud and local storage. Cloud services are also a great way to have a backup of your footage. However, just like anything else, it's not 100% guarantee that it's going to get there. There could be different issues, like say your internet has some troubles and things go down on the NAS and it stops sending. We used to have a problem that our internet was too slow at our previous office, and 300 gigabytes of a wedding would take nearly a week to upload. Well, you multiply that by the 100-some weddings we do a year, and it just becomes a huge bottleneck to ensure that we have that safety backup. Getting faster internet will help with some of those situations, but just keep in mind that each cloud service is different. They might have different speeds that they use to upload. They might have different requirements. The one caveat I will say about a cloud system is that at the end of the day, you're sending your footage over to a company that you don't know when they might just disappear, or they might have issues and you could lose some footage as well. So it's not that cloud services aren't great, it's just a matter of just making sure that you still have external drives and you don't rely on one source for your backups. So after we have all of our raw footage safely backed up, then we start our next level of redundancies, and that is setting up our editing project and making sure we have multiple backups of that. We are Mac people here and we work with Final Cut Pro. It doesn't matter what type of editing software you want to use. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to be focusing within Final Cut. So what we like to do then to get that second level of redundancy is we go ahead and create a Final Cut project. We save everything internally to the library, not externally, keeping all the footage in one space in its own self-contained Final Cut library versus having outside folders and referencing them. And then we put that on a smaller drive like this SSD. Then we take those projects and we back those up on the NAS as well. And again, that same process of redundancy. We have it on the NAS, it gets sent to the cloud. We have 3 spaces now where everything is backed up and we feel safe that, yep, we can move forward with the project, which is then going ahead and starting to edit. So when you start your edit, we always recommend editing off of external SSDs. There's a wide variety of them. The great thing about these drives is that a lot of them are super portable, they're durable, you can beat them up and you don't have to worry about them as much compared to an external drive like this where one little drop and you could just completely break everything and you'll lose everything. Editing off of these drives is super smooth and super efficient. You're not going to struggle a whole lot unless if you are working with a really old computer trying to edit some of this footage. We always recommend at least 1 terabyte, if not 2 on these drives, just so you have space to not only put maybe multiple weddings, but also when you go to render things out, you have a little more space as well for that. Now, can you be editing off external drives like this one here that we use for backup? Yes, you can. However, what you're going to notice though is that as your files get really big, you're going to notice that these drives start to struggle. And that's just simply because internally, they're not fast enough to handle it. So if you're doing something real quick, yeah, you could edit off of this. But if you're doing something a little more intensive, like a lot of color corrections, or maybe you integrate a lot of graphics into your highlights, then you're going to want something smaller. Should you edit internally off of your computer? The professional answer is no, you shouldn't rely on that because there's just too many things that could happen, whether you run out of space while you're trying to edit from your internal drives, or even if your computer goes corrupt, you might lose your entire computer then. And not only do you lose the wedding, but your computer won't work. It's best to have a separate fast hard drive that you're editing your projects from, and then a couple different backups of that as well. Another important aspect of backing up is with, of course, our memory cards that come from the camera. And what do we do with those? So what we actually do is we put them off to the side and we wait until we know that we have everything backed up multiple places, and we actually start really kind of actually editing the wedding before we feel comfortable enough that we can clear out the cards. Because once we start the edit, we'll see everything that we have, and then we'll be like, okay, we got it all. There's nothing else missing. Those cards are good to go back into use again. Once our edit is completed, then we go ahead and we put all the final deliverables in place. We have it set up so that we put all of our final deliverables on our NAS, which is connected to then Google Drive. Then we have individual folders for our couples that then we send out to them, and then they can grab the files themselves from Google Drive and download and back them up on however they want. And then after a year, we clear out our server, make sure that we have everything saved to these external drives here, and then we put these into storage. From start to finish, we always try to have 2 to 3 redundancies of everything, whether it's the raw footage itself, the edits that we're working on, and the final deliverables are all redundancy backups for our clients so that they have that peace of mind that we'll have it and we have our own peace of mind. So that's what we do here at Monroe Film and Photo to make sure that we have our wedding safely backed up, and it's redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. We're super excited to dive further into how we edit our wedding highlights. So the next video coming up is we're going to get started in Final Cut Pro. Super excited to show you guys, and a lot of great tips that we're going to show you to keep things organized. So please stay tuned for the next one.